all the quarterback changes that have already happened that you've thought about a trade or thought about the possibility of if you wanted to be traded?
I think I made it very clear I wanted to be here before I got here. And I love this organization. I love the coaching staff. I absolutely love these players to death. This is where I want to be. I feel like I can thrive in this system. And, it's just, everything played out exactly how I wanted it. I wouldn't want anything else to change.
Isn't that interesting? That's the answer, of course, provided by Vikings quarterback J.J. McCarthy, who, of course, a year ago at this time was anointed to be the starter. Question was asked by our favorite shock jock, Kevin Seifert, kind enough to join us via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline, Seifert, ESPN, and ESPN.com. You had to do it, didn't you? You had to try to get him going on the T question, didn't you?
This is all your radio station's fault.
How so?
Wasn't it on the morning show where Pelissero talked about it? And didn't Ben Lever talk about it the other day?
Really?
I felt like I had to ask JJ just to get him on the record with all the speculation coming out of the radio station.
How did he do?
What's that?
How did he do? How do you think? How was it an effective fielding of your question?
Yeah,
by JJ?
no, it was strong. There was no facial expression that suggested he was mad about the question, and no hemming and hawing. He made very clear, and he was referencing what he said was really a reference to before he got drafted. He was telling people that of all the places that were potentially going to draft a quarterback, he wanted to go to Minnesota, and he reiterated that the night he was drafted and the next day. And so what he was basically saying is that I was very clear then, and nothing has changed in terms of his interest in where he wants to play. He wants it to be here. Now, I assume that that's contingent on actually playing. If it turns out that he's not going to be playing, that he'll be a backup, then I don't know if that changes the calculus. But as of right now, asked about that possibility, he said, this is where I want to be.
Why are you guys already taking sides? Why, for example, are you not ready to push back on the new guy? I know it's the honeymoon period for Kyler Murray, but as I understand it, and I did not hear this part of his what he had to say today, but basically it sounds like he's complaining that he's not, he only gets he's splitting the reps trying to learn a new offense, almost setting up the alibi. Well, if I don't know the new offense, it's not because I'm working on a Game Boy or something. It's because I'm only getting half the time I'm used to when I was with the Arizona Cardinals.
Well, or he was just being honest when asked, I think the question from Judd Zolgad was, what's the toughest part? What's been the toughest part of this transition?
Yeah. And
that's what he said. And I think it's a perfectly valid observation to make. I don't know if I classify it as complaining or not, but it's a perfectly valid answer that, you're learning and this was something that has been talked about in previous years. And anytime there's really a quarterback controversy is that the best way to get better is to get reps and to play and to be in there with the players that if you win the job, you're going to be in there with. And when there's a competition, there's a necessity to split the reps. And so that's an added challenge. And, Kevin O'Connell talked last week that part of the judgment here is how do people deal with adversity? How do people deal with situations that are not perfect? And so I don't think that Kyler was saying that this is making it hard for me to be a good player. He's just saying hey, if you're asking me what the toughest part is, this is it.
All right, well, let's play this out a little bit. Let's say we get to training camp and it's still viewed as, a competition, whether it really is or not. That's what is proclaimed. They continue to split reps. Realistically, how long can you do it that way? Do you envision a scenario in which the Vikings, through the quarterback whisperer, literally splits everything down the middle for almost all of camp? Or practically speaking, do you have to really change that to go with whoever you really want to be or think will be the starter? Because at that point, he may well need all that extra time. How's that going to play out? How are we going to figure all that out?
Well, Lindsey Theory, our ESPN national reporter who was in town to do some NFL Live work, talked to Kevin O'Connell about that, and I think it played on the air a little while ago. And he said that he has a general idea of what the appropriate time would be to make a decision. And, obviously that's subject to change. And if it's very obvious early on, maybe that decision, he didn't say this part, but to me, like maybe that decision, gets moved forward. The sooner the better, I think, for everybody. I do know, and I have not talked to Kevin O'Connell about this, so I don't know if this is his thinking, but what I do know about the way he thinks about training camp is that usually the two most important days for him are the days that they practice against another opponent. And so we don't have the dates of when they're going to be, at least I'm in front of me, of when they're going to be practicing against the Ravens. So there are 2 days scheduled for that. And so I wonder if he would be tempted to at least see it through to that point. And then there's a preseason game right after it, or if he would like to have it done before that to give the starter every rep he can against the Ravens defense. And so I think that's going to be a critical time, one way or the other, this summer. Like, you would not want it to extend much beyond that, if you're even going to extend it that far.
I want to get into some other aspects of what you saw today, but so did you, what did we do today? Was it any drilling? I mean, was there anything that you came away with regarding how the two QBs looked or the team looked, or is it too rudimentary for that?
It's almost identical to what they do in OTAs.
Okay.
And that's just the way Kevin O'Connell has always run it. The only difference really between today and the OTAs is that today was mandatory, and if a veteran doesn't show up and doesn't have a pre-existing excuse, then he gets fined, and there's really no appeal and no ability for the team to rescind it if they wanted to be nice to that particular player. And so really that's the only difference in Minnesota, at least, between OTAs and minicamp. So they have 7-on-7 where guys are running fairly quickly, and then sometimes they'll have some 11-on-11s where it moves very slowly, almost like a walkthrough. It's very much a mental time period in general. And I know that Kevin O'Connell talked about this in relation to rookie minicamp as well. Like the clear goal is to avoid injuries, to avoid anything that might linger, even from a soft tissue perspective, into training camp, which is where things ramp up considerably, obviously, and to get as much mental work and as much mental rep as you can. And so, as Kyler Murray called today, this is not real football. Even if they were at a higher tempo, it wouldn't be real football. But we can see things like who's running with the first team, who's running with the second team, how reps are being split, all that kind of stuff. But it's very difficult to get a grip exactly on how players are performing.
Has the other JJ already made his decision regarding the position? I'm sure you either saw, heard, read the commentary on this station with PA from Justin Jefferson on Kyler. He understands the game. He understands the defenses. He understands how to put touch on the ball just enough to where it gets to where it's got to go without making it difficult for us. He understands the game a lot more. More than what, JJ? He kind of throws the ball before you even get out of that break. Smart guy, and he's a competitor. It sounds like game, set, and match for Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, I did see that and listened to it and watched the video. It felt like a continuation of what he said in April when we talked to him for the first time about the quarterback competition. He basically said, J.J. McCarthy knows that it's time to step up or you're going to be taking a back seat again. And so to me, like that transitions pretty clearly into what Justin said to Paul Allen the other day. And it really just matches the eye test and matches what I think most people who are in reality know to be the case, that at the very least, Kyler comes in as the favorite. And I don't think that's particularly controversial or even taking sides. It's just being realistic about the history of the players, and what the extent to which we've been able to see anything in the past, month or so.
How about this revolutionary concept? If, reps are a big part of it and frustration and so forth in this alleged competition, How about our quarterbacks in the mix actually play more than 15 seconds in the preseason?
That's going to be an interesting dynamic, and I have not yet broached that with the head coach. But I think that's something to consider. I think I even wondered about it last year when we realized that J.J. McCarthy needed reps and was very behind in terms of experience level and just being able to have experience throwing the passes that you throw in this offense to the players that you need to throw them to. And so I know there's a reticence about injuries. I know there's a reticence that if you're playing the start, the quarterback, you're going to want to use the offensive line, and you're going to want to use at least some of his receivers. And it's more than just giving the quarterback reps. But I think it's a fair question, and I think it's certainly one that'll come up as the preseason gets closer. That even if there wasn't a great value seen in it previously, maybe that in this regard and in this situation it would be.
Why are you watching the Brian O'Neill story? What's that all about?
Yeah, so Brian O'Neill, their longtime right tackle, is entering the last year of his contract. It's fair to assume that I think everybody in the building wants him to remain with the Vikings. I'm sure he does too, but I think mostly because they were in this sort of interim front office situation, the contract that he eventually would command is too big and too significant from a long-term planning perspective to pull the trigger on until you get a GM hired. And now there's Nolan Teasley has been hired, and I think now that process will probably start to move along. But in the meantime, Brian was doing what a lot of players, if not most players in this situation, do, and don't participate in the voluntary part of the off season. And he was at practice, but not in uniform for the OTAs that we saw that were open to the media. And he was with the offensive line, but just not getting involved in the actual work. So it wasn't a holdout. It can't be a holdout when something is voluntary, but it wasn't like he was even away from the building. He was in the building and then on the field. But today, as I said, the difference between OTAs and minicamp is that if you're not in uniform or participating, you can be fined. And so like that, he was in fact in uniform today, and he was participating in some of the drills, and so that was all good to go. And so I expect at some point that they will address his deal. And everything that I understand, there's nobody who thinks it would be a good idea to move on from him either now or even at the end of next season. And so I think there's pretty universal agreement that this is a guy that they're going to want to keep around here for a long time. But again, those deals are big enough and complicated enough that you're not going to want to enter into it until you know who your general manager is and that he's going to be on board with it and that he incorporates that into his long-term planning as well. I'm
going to ask you a question you can't possibly answer, but that's never stopped me before. It's not going to stop me now. What does the hiring of Nolan Teasley in particular, in your mind, mean to this organization, or mean regarding where the direction you think it signals they want to go?
There's the obvious answer of having admiration for how the Seahawks operate. That not only did they win the Super Bowl this year, but they had won it, 13 years ago, and totally rebuilt the team in between without really having too big of a crash in any given season from a roster or talent perspective, and Nolan Teasley was around there for all of it. But I think the big thing that I keep coming back to is that what Mark Wilf was saying all along in prior to the hiring was that they thought they have a good scouting department, they thought they had a good coaching staff, they needed a general manager to fit in the existing group. And Nolan Teasley comes very highly recommended and obviously has a ton of very relevant experience with the Seahawks, but he also, in their estimation, has the type of personality and the type of ambition that would allow him to work, to be the general manager and to have authority over the roster, but also be able to build consensus and also be able to listen and understand where some other people who have built some equity with the organization, namely Kevin O'Connell and Rob Brzezinski, also and also listen to them in some cases. And so I think that their view of him is that he is their top guy in the building, but that it's more like because he has sort of the tie-breaking card, not because they wanted to have somebody come in here and either, overhaul the entire organization or just be the alpha guy at the top of the food chain and just ordering everybody around. That is not what they've ever wanted, and it's not what they want now. And I think that they feel pretty confident that Nolan Teasley has the right sort of personality and the right sort of expertise and the right sort of humility to fit in to the structure that they want.
Do you have a relative or a close friend named Christian in Rosemount?
No, sir.
I'm checking because I'm reading his text. Why is Seifert the only guy who reports on the Vikings in this town? First guy to ask the Wilfs about the new GM's power and authority, asks JJ about being traded, and will not buy into the KOC word salad. Thank you, Kevin, for always being a man of the people. Wow. How about that?
I appreciate that comment. I'm not, based on the feedback I get, I'm not sure it's universally thought, but I'm glad to hear it expressed by at least one and repeated by you.
Well, I'm guessing it probably, in that vein, bugs Christian that you got bumped out today for National Reporter Gal from ESPN.
Oh, there it goes. There you go. Well, you found a way to stir it up.
It's unbelievable. Yep. You're perfectly capable of articulating whatever's going on in the quarterback position right now, and it would have been your moment on SportsCenter tonight. Meanwhile, they got to Bigfoot you with the National Reporter.
Well, it's just like Nolan Teasley. I think I have the personality and the humility and the expertise to fit into the ESPN team exactly how the ESPN team needs me to fit in.
Oh, that is How
about that?
So well.
How about that?
Man, you're safe for another 25 years, man. You're fine. That's the kind of thing that'll give you a great deal of job security.
I'm well practiced at that.
Yeah, for sure. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon and evening. Thank you for the time today. As always, we'll be in touch.
Okay, Dan.
Thank you, Seifert. Kevin Seifert helping us out via the Connecticut Water Systems Hotline. We're guest intensive early in this program, as you can indeed tell. We had Richard Pitino at 3:30. Seifert just concluding, and Luigi's got to go a little earlier than usual, so we will preview the Stanley Cup Final, which continues tonight on the Fan. I got a couple of management questions for Luigi as well. Lou Nanne will join in just a couple minutes. Hit the KFAN text line at 64686 with your questions and or observations.
You're listening. Well, she sneaks around the world from India to Carolina. She's a sticky-fingered filcher from Berlin down to Belize. Take me for a ride on a slow boat to China. Tell me, where in the world is Lou Nanne?
Louis is not in studio this week. He's brought to you by Kemp's, as always, after having been in studio each of the last 3 weeks. Luigi, I can't remember if are you at the compound this week?
No, I'm in Toronto.
Toronto, that's right. You mentioned you're going to be in Toronto, Ontario. I've got a question that's not related to the Stanley Cup Final that actually a texter had last time. Well, when you were on with me Sunday, and I didn't get to it because there just wasn't time. So as we understand it, it's a management question, kind of. So as we understand it, the Vikings, so they hire, they have an effort, a search to find a new general manager, and they ultimately settle on Nolan Teasley from a very good organization, Seattle. Now, what we've been told all along is that the Wilfs had kind of an advisory committee that maybe helped them, I guess, go through the candidates, maybe give some opinions, whatever the case may be. And we were also told that Kevin O'Connell was part of that committee. So are you okay with that process? In other words, is there anything a little odd about a guy who's already here, if you're the owners, a guy who's already here being involved in a decision that, quite frankly, might directly affect his future down the road or even who's got how much power? Are you okay with that, or does that seem a little strange to you?
Well, even though it seems a little strange to me, I think it's been done before. Didn't that happen with New England with Belichick when they had one general manager left and another one coming in? I think
might have. I don't know.
Might have. Yeah. I think it's happened in the past in a few football instances. I don't know that I can recall, but it could have where it happened in hockey. I think that's different. I don't know how you look at it. Do you think the general manager is beholden in any way to the coach coming in, or the coach going to sabotage a guy that he doesn't want to work with? It might be a great guy because he might be too tough. I'm sure it's happened along the way, but no, I'm not. I wouldn't be happy with it.
We'll get to some questions from the audience, hockey related as well. They're already coming in. 64686 is the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. So we'll mix and match. There'll be some wild stuff, and there'll be some Stanley Cup final stuff, which, of course, continues this evening on the Fan. All right, here's the chance, obviously, for the Canes to tie this series at 2-2. What does your gut tell you about where this thing is going now? I mean, was it a major breakthrough when they got the game they got, and even losing the way they lost, given their great comeback? Do you look at the Canes now as very dangerous as a team that can come back and win this thing, or do you still view it from, I think, the beginning, what you thought is you leaned in Vegas's direction?
I'm still leaning in Vegas' direction, but the Canes sure are capable of doing it. I think tonight, I don't know what Brind'Amour is going to do. I know just from watching on the outside, I know what I'd be doing. I'd be putting Bussy in the net. Bussy went through some really great stretches earlier in the year when Anderson was hurt. Even though he's been out for a long time, the way he came in and performed, I think it's really hard to take him out. And especially if you look at it, I want to say it's more than 3 games now that Anderson's given up more than 3 goals in a game in a row, at least 3 and even more. So I wouldn't be surprised if he switched goaltenders tonight. The Canes have to have gotten themselves a lot of confidence with that that comeback in the third period, especially scoring 3 goals in 39 seconds. But I still got to lean towards Vegas because of their maturity, their physicality, and they do have the best 2 players of the 2 teams on the ice, and that's Eichel and Marner.
So Vegas, being that formidable, I still don't feel like when the maybe I missed it, but I didn't think when the playoffs began, teams were viewing them that way. Obviously, there was a healthy respect because of who they had in their history, but do you feel differently about them now than you did then, or do people around the league feel? Because I didn't feel like starting the playoffs, it was watch out. We got Vegas is going to be the most dangerous team.
Well, Vegas wasn't healthy again going into the playoffs. They got healthy when the playoffs started. Like Mark Stone was out for quite a while. There was a couple of them out. And I think the biggest question mark was goaltending because they had goaltending problems all the way till I want to say about 18, 19 games left in the season. And Carter's come in and really solidified that position, and that was the big question mark, why you were thinking about that. They had the great defense, an experienced defense, and defenses, like Theodore and McNabb. These guys have been there and played in the playoffs and won Stanley Cups. I don't know what the exact number is. And by the way, Carlson was out all during that time too. Right. So you got 2 key players coming back. It's like if the Wild could have had Brodin and Eriksson Ek coming back, that would have changed to me the playoff picture. I think a great deal. And same if Makar and McKinnon don't get hurt. So it was a big thing that Vegas, the big advantage they got when they started getting those players back, and the goaltender came through the way he did.
A lot of good questions are coming in, and some of them are Cup related. Some of them, of course, are Wild related. When you joined us for some bonus time Sunday, we talked about the Larkin possibility. Let me ask the question or re-ask it this way. If the only way you can get Larkin is that you're going to have to give up Wallstedt, is that too much for Larkin?
It scares me. It scares me unless I know that Gus is going to come back and play really well. you got a young guy like that in goal that has really shown that he's capable of big things. And Larkin's 30 years old. Now, is Larkin going to be enough if your goaltending's not good?
Yeah.
I doubt that. I'd like to stay away from giving up the goaltender. I do not think it's worthwhile to give up Wallstead at this juncture for Larkin.
Yeah.
It might prove to be well, but I wouldn't want to take that gamble.
What about Eric? How about Eck? Because I've heard people say, well, the whole point of adding Larkin is to give you the kind of depth 1-2 in a way that then if Eck gets hurt again, it doesn't kill you the way it did last time. So is that another guy that you're almost robbing Peter to pay Paul? Even if
definitely. I definitely wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
You need both of them. If you're going to win a cup, you're not going to win it just with Larkin. That's for sure.
Right.
You definitely need Eck. I think that, I would go so far as to say I would take a chance of giving up Wallstead, having Gustafsson, than giving up Eck. I think you need the two centermen, but I still wouldn't give up Wallstead. I'd like to stay away from that and give a couple other youngsters and a future first round and maybe another draft choice, because he is going to be 31. He's going, you're at the right time to have him. He's right, perfect place in his career to be coming in and adding not only depth and performance and being the number one centerman, but also experience, and he is a tremendous hockey player, Larkin. So I wouldn't mind taking the chance that I could fulfill the holes that I'd be having coming in future years through free agency, and maybe make some other deals as you go along for draft choices. So I'd like to see them stick with giving up 2, maybe 3 young guys in a first round pick.
Well, I will say this: if the media reports are accurate, this is an example of progress being made on this front, and that is that supposedly Larkin has named 3 teams as teams he would consider going to, and the Wild are one of the 3 teams. And that's exactly where you want to get to, right, Louis? And I'm not sure this team, despite being the state of hockey, has been in that position. There's more of a sense of this is not just a good destination because of the state of hockey, but it's a good destination because if I go there, I got a chance to be a part of something, correct?
Yeah, and, there's a couple other things besides being one of 3, which I don't even know. I think the other one's Dallas, and I don't know who the third one is, but I would really say that Minnesota's number 1. And the reason why I'd say that, I believe that his agent is the same agent that Quinn Hughes has. Quinn Hughes and Larkin have been friends for a long time. They you look at their careers and where they've come from, it's crossed over. And he's very familiar. Now, having played with a few of the guys like Boldy and Hughes and Faber on the Olympic team, there's a lot of things in the Wild's favor to get him here. And what I like about that is he does have the right to a no trade, and so he's got to okay it. So when you put those things together, you'd say he's going to try and make a play for Minnesota, and Minnesota might not have to give up as much as, say, teams 2 and 3. If he likes Minnesota best. And the Red Wings might realize then that this is the play they're going to have to take. If it's got to be good. Let's face it. I mean, Yzerman's not going to give them away, but it's got to be good enough. But I don't think it's got to be as good as the other 2 teams from just looking from the outside at some of the situations that exist here.
All right, we need to get one quick pause in. We got much more to get to with Luigi. Keep the text coming. Lou Nanne Part 2 is coming up. Top 5 at 5 yet to come as well, and a very busy program back in just a minute here on The Fan.
Bumper to bumper.
Lou Nanne is back with us, brought to you by, as always, his good friends at Kemp's. Story breaking today, Luigi, as you probably know, and I think you're pleased about this, Michael McCarron ain't waiting for free agency on July 1. He is locking in with your favorite hockey team, the Minnesota Wild. Your thoughts?
I was very, very happy to see that. I felt that they could get a deal done, but I wasn't sure. You know, you still have to wonder, is he going to try and go the whole way for money? He probably took a little less, but got a longer contract, so it all adds up to being a real good deal for him, and it's an excellent deal for the Wild to have him tied up. You know, you sign long-term deals when you're 31, and you get a little concerned about years 5 and 6, but that contract, it's not that high a contract, and you know, when you go years 5 and 6, it's still $3.5 million, and with the cap going up over those years and the buyouts you have, you're still in a good position, and I was really pleased to see that.
What does he add? What do you like about him?
A lot of things. One, I like the fact that he's big, he's physical, he's real good defensively and on face-offs, and he's a guy that I think is an excellent teammate. He really oversees. You know, when you need some extra protection, you'll get it from him. And he's had a history, you know, where he competed everywhere he's been. He's not going to be a big goal scorer. If he does ever come out with over 20 goals, that would be an unbelievable plus. But you could expect him to be in the 12 to 17 goal range and give you kind of the checking ability, the physicality that you need, the prowess in the face-off circle. I just think that was a big addition. I was really hoping that they'd get that done and get it done fast, and they did.
Kaprizov question or observation has come in from 952 guy. I want to get your thoughts on this, your reaction to it. He asks whether you are concerned about the Kaprizov skating style. He seems to spend all his time on his edges versus just straight line speed like some of the best players in the league. How about Kaprizov and the New Jersey Hughes brothers? And it doesn't seem like we have to give up much to get Larkin as well.
Well, by the way, you talk about being on his edges. Hughes is on his edges all night long, and you sure don't complain about his style. No, I have no problem with that at all. And let me tell you, when you got a guy like Kaprizov and you got a Hughes and Boldy, that's really quite a core to start out with. You got 3 stars right there, and now they're filling in around the sides where they have to. I would expect that they would re-sign Zuccarello. I don't think it's going to take a lot of money, and I do think he's valuable for the team. And I'm still looking at defense. When you talk about making trades and either adding or including the defenseman in the deal, I'm still looking at how they handle that position. I think that is a position that they're probably also looking at.
Louis, you know, we were talking about this, what's today? Yesterday was Monday. And I'm wondering if you have a thought on this, because after Game 3, and obviously Game 3 was compelling as hell, right? I mean, this was the second time in Stanley Cup history that a team had blown a 4-goal lead, although in this case they went on to win the game, but nevertheless, the 4-goal lead in the third period. And I get there's already been a lot of wild sequences and shifts within what's been a very entertaining series. But the analysts, and this I think is true in every sport now, they gush to the place where they go, this is the best start to a Stanley Cup Finals ever, or this is the best start to an NBA Finals ever, or this is the best player ever. Why isn't it enough to say, man, this is great stuff, entertaining, competitive, unusual, and maybe one of the historic, we might be, having one of the most historic Stanley Cup Finals ever, as opposed to, because I feel like people forget too quickly. There's that recency bias where it's that we ain't seen nothing like we've just seen. What's that about, do you think?
Well, I know one thing. I agree with you 100%, because when I read that same thing, I'm saying I can't even remember the last couple of years how the Stanley Cup playoffs were, how exciting they were, because every year seems to morph into another one, but I know they were all good.
Yes.
And I don't know why I think it's been very, very good, excellent. But the first period of the third game was not a good period.
Right.
But we remember the excitement of the third period, the excitement of that comeback. And by the way, that first period in the overtime was Carolina's. They let it slip away. And that was a great period. And then you lose a game on a fluke goal. So I think the series is terrific. I don't think it's the best series ever, because I'm sure there's others along the line where I felt the same way about. I remember saying, what a great series, but I can't remember which teams were playing right now. But I do feel like you feel. Let's just enjoy the series that we got and enjoy the fact that it is a tremendous series, but I don't know how you're going to categorize it.
Yeah, it's again, I'm not saying it's not good. I'm not saying it's not entertaining.
No, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
But I gotta believe if we go back far enough, we're forgetting about a lot of stuff, right? And I'm sure probably remember a lot more than I do, but even you say, well, it's hard to remember, but there's got to be a lot of mythic series, and just because they didn't happen, last season or the season before, doesn't mean they're not important. But it's almost like we feel like you have to sell it, and I don't even think we need to sell it. I think people are into it. I think there's obviously great story angles and very compelling hockey, and I'd like to think that should be enough. But it's the internet age, and maybe everybody's got to sell stuff like there's never been anything like this before.
I agree with you, because even though as great as this series has been, and it's been terrific, I can look back at each of these games and seen some spots where it was really soft. When I say soft, it wasn't exciting. The play wasn't as sharp. It wasn't as good. But then it takes off into different parts of the game where you got more speed, more physicality, more puck movement, more great saves, and then it all morphs together.
I'm with you 100%. What's your schedule? Are you out now? No, it's the summer, so you're still going to be here because you're going to be at the compound.
Right. Yeah. Yep. I know I got one more trip. I got to go to the Bahamas either next week or the week after. But other than that, I'll be in Minnesota next Tuesday. I'm not sure. I got to see when that other trip of mine comes this month.
I have to say that I thoroughly enjoyed. One of the great satisfactions of this program, of my doing this show, is occasionally putting unlikely characters together. And it turns out, Sunday that happened because Sam Mitchell was in town. He said he would come in, but I certainly wanted to cover the hockey too. And you guys ended up, I think, having a great conversation and further proof that a lot in common, I think, more than maybe people might have thought, given you come from hockey and he comes from basketball, obviously.
Well, I've always admired him from far, essentially, but he's such a terrific person and a nice person, a guy that's easy to talk to, and I've always enjoyed him when he's been on your show in the past, and it was really a pleasure to get the opportunity to spend some time with him on the radio with you. It
was a lot of fun across the board. Great stuff as always, my friend. We will chat next week.
We'll look forward to it. Take care.
Thanks, Luigi. That is Lou Nanne joining us. Dateline Toronto, where Sam Mitchell used to be a head coach and once upon a time was named the NBA Coach of the Year. We are, I believe, guest-free the rest of the way. We do have Top 5 at 5 coming up. What's going to be on the platter?
NBA Finals, Stanley Cup Final, Wild make a move, PJ, JJ, Drake Lindsay.
You're listening to